You know those super hard biscuits that are sold at coffee shops? The long ones. They're called biscotti. I lived most of my life not really knowing what they were for. I don't frequent coffee shops, and I didn't when I was growing up, so when I saw a bunch of these things being sold in the grocery store as a kid, I bought like 100 of them for $5. The package said they were cookies. They were slightly sweet and very difficult to eat. They were so cheap, I reasoned, because they were stale pieces of cardboard that someone had lied about and said that they were edible. Hard, crunchy, and somewhat tasteless, they are the worst type of cookies that had ever been invented. Something I knew as a child that was invented to torture children with. I had this dim opinion of biscotti for a long time until I saw someone dip it into their coffee. Upon trying this for myself, I realized that these things were genius, that it was one of the best tasting things I had ever discovered, and there's no way to describe it. You have to have the hot coffee, and you have to have the biscotti dipped in it. Religion or spirituality, to me, is the biscotti. Not that enjoyable alone. Kind of stale when you think about how long it's been out there. Slightly sweet, but on its own, missing something. The hot stuff we dip the religion into is what makes it all worthwhile. Its whole intended purpose is commitment. What I mean by this is that sure, you can pick up meditation and try it for a little bit and forget about it when it's inconvenient. You can come here once a quarter and feel refreshed, amazed that the services this congregation can offer is practically free. But those casual encounters with religion and spirituality is not what this community is designed for. Those things really come alive when there is commitment. This commitment helps us with what I feel are one of the central tenets of Unitarian Universalism, which is growth. Reverend Catherine Torpey writes about one of our Unitarian ancestors, the Reverend James Freeman Clark. She writes that in his sermon, Clark asserts that the one fact which is written on nature and human life is the fact of progress, and this must be accepted as the purpose of the Creator. Clark believed that all we need to do is look around us to see that obviously it is the nature of things to progress, onward and upward forever. The gospel teaches us, Clark preached, that there is always something to look forward to, some higher attainment, some larger usefulness, some nearer communion with God. And all this accords with all we see and know, with the long processes of geological development by which the earth became fitted to be the home of humanity, with the slow ascent of organized beings from humbler to fuller life, with the progress of society from age to age. The one fact which is written on nature and human life is the fact of progress, and this must be accepted as the purpose of the Creator. But you cannot bottle progress, or buy it in a 3-part audio series on spirituality. It doesn't happen by making a new resolution and abandoning it by March, or coming here a couple times a year. It takes commitment to progress, like plants that have busted through the concrete, or trees that have grown up and around fences that would limit their trunks. This doesn't happen suddenly all at once. The very essence of a plant is a commitment, bit by bit, to grow onward and upward through any obstacle. Commitment does make you feel different. Once when our UUA president, Reverend Peter Morales, was asked what the difference between being a member of a congregation and someone who just visits for a while, he said the difference is palpable, similar to the difference between being married and just shacking up. And there are many obstacles to being committed in a religious community, surely as there are to being married. For one, we may have memories of a religious community as forcing commitment. Rites that felt stifling rather than uplifting. Ceremonies that we were dragged to with a feeling of dread. Sermons we heard that assured us that the very things that we loved about ourselves, that made us different, would be the very things to drag us to hell. Being forced to profess things we didn't believe. This is coercion, which is a poor substitute for commitment. A hallmark of Unitarian Universalism are the ethics of consent. You are only here because you fully choose to be. I am your minister here, not because the Unitarian Universalist Association put me here, whether you like it or not, but because this congregation offered for me to be here, and I like you. So I accepted your offer. Religiously, we promote a theology in which you must fully embrace and accept what you believe. We will not tell you you must believe in something against your will for the sake of your soul, and we will not tell you that the only rational choice is to believe in nothing. This community is here to help affirm your beliefs and help you grow as a person. This freedom to choose the things that we think are worth committing to is one of our foundational religious aspects in the United States. When the Puritans first colonized these lands so that they could freely practice their religion and freely make money how they wanted to make money, they were still part of the Puritan movement in England. Power changed in England when Charles I was beheaded. Oliver Cromwell, who was a Puritan, ruled the land, and so he chose to try and restabilize the country through restabilizing its religion. The Parliament met for 5 years outlining its presbytery system, which meant that the Puritan congregations in what would be the United States would be under English control. The document that outlined this governance structure was called the Westminster Confession. The Puritans in the colonies couldn't tolerate this, and they came together and created the Cambridge Platform, a system of governance that outlined the tenets of what we use, congregational polity. This is why we are free to elect our ministers and decide, congregation by congregation, what is sacred and holy. James Luther Adams called this the principle of free association. We freely choose to be a part of this organization and resist any sort of pecking order amongst ourselves. Choosing to do what we do gives us the commitment without the coercion, a nuance about organized religion that historically we have not examined. This commitment is something that we need to survive. James Luther Adams says that the element of commitment, of change of heart, of decision, so much emphasized in the Gospels, has been neglected by religious liberalism. That is the prime source of its enfeeblement. We liberals are largely an uncommitted and therefore a self-frustrating people. Our first task, then, is to restore liberalism to its own dynamic and to its prophetic genius. We need conversion in ourselves. Only by some such revolution can we be seized by a prophetic power that will enable us to proclaim both the judgment and the love of God. Only by some such conversion can we be possessed by a love that will not let us go. Being committed to this community is a boon in many ways, both to us personally and to society at large. For example, have you ever wondered why country people are considered to be so friendly, but urbanites are so off-putting? It's one of my favorite psychological theories called social loafing. The idea is that if you're around a lot of other people, you'll always assume that someone else is doing what needs to be done. This is why in the countryside, when someone needs help, say their car breaks down on the side of the road, country people are more likely to stop and help because they know they're probably the only one around. In the city, the same person needing help won't get it because everyone assumes that someone else is already helping. So it's not innate. People in the countryside, are no more nicer than people in the city, but the system that people are put in determines behavior. And at the core of this idea of social loafing is that if there are a lot of people around, then the rest of the group doesn't need you. Being committed to this community by your own choice helps resist social loafing. Know that each and every one of you in this room is needed in this community, and our congregation is needed in this valley, and we are needed in the Unitarian Universalist Association. For each person that we claim as a member here, we pay about $85 to the Unitarian Universalist Association, because we know that we are needed. When Aleppo in Syria fell, it was the Unitarian Universalist Association that was able to send money and aid to people who desperately needed it. It was our institution that was able to take a stand. Now, I can hardly make a difference on an issue as terrible as war all by myself, but by participating in this congregation, and this congregation's membership in the larger association, I am able to have an impact on the world that is larger than myself. That's why we ask each person who comes here to be a member, to display this commitment to the community, to give at least $85 and to pledge either time or money to help our community flourish. To do this publicly by signing our membership book, and when someone you know starts asking the great questions of life or what we can do to help people in Aleppo, you can say, well, there's this great little community I know called Two Rivers Unitarian Universalist. Everything you do here makes a difference. I talked about how your support of this community makes a difference internationally with the refugees in Aleppo. But nationally and locally, your commitment here has made a difference too. Since August, I and other congregation members have been holding meetings for Standing Rock. People from all over the valley gave money to buy stoves. 13 are being used right now to get Native Americans through the difficult winters in North Dakota. Your commitment has meant that things like teepee poles have gotten to Standing Rock. And representatives from over 13 different religious denominations were there to watch Native elders burn the Doctrine of Discovery, the document that the United States has used for over 500 years to say that Native Americans were not people and therefore it was okay to kill them and take their land. I was there representing you to take part in that ceremony. Every day, your commitment to this community means something. The thing I learned about Standing Rock is that Native American peoples believe that community is ceremony. Every day, tribes remember and respect ancestors that are still part of the community, things that are done with intention, and one person is a part of the whole. We have ceremony in our community as well. When someone gets married, we have rituals that confirm this joyous union. When someone is born, we have child dedications that welcome the child and affirm our commitment to their upbringing. When someone dies, we hold memorial services to remember and celebrate their life. When someone is ill, we are there in the hospital and bring them to their doctor's appointments. The song says, "Roots hold me close and wings set me free," and this community is what provides both. Other organizations provide more one than the other, but we are the ones who will always be here for each other and for the transformation of self and society. Your commitment helps just one person, this congregation, the whole valley, the entire nation, and all of the world at the same time. What you do here matters, and if you are thinking someone else is doing what needs to be done, let me tell you, they're not. So you need to do it. Resist social loafing. Your commitment is what sets us apart from a floundering, neither here nor there, some vague spiritual there's no there, and a community that changes lives and the courses of nations. This is what creates the unexpected boon that can change your life, like a rose in the wintertime. Remember, biscotti alone is kind of terrible and stale, and not unlike some religious and spiritual groups that lack commitment. Having the commitment of coffee to dip it into, well, that is truly what makes life sweet.